Finally tonight, we need something uplifting. It's time for our story-entered segment. First, an announcement. I'm delighted to share with you the cover reveal of my latest Will Wilder book, the third in the series. It's called Will Wilder, The Amulet of Power. The cover captures the drama and the peril that Will faces himself in book 3. This time he comes in contact with an amulet containing the locks of Samson, and as you can expect, trouble follows, and a good deal of miracles. There are also some amazing relics that are part of permanent collections in the real world. Adventure awaits. Will Wilder 3, The Amulet of Power, can be pre-ordered now at willwilderbooks.com or wherever books are sold. It premieres this February from Random House, and now my next guest is also an author. He's a poet, a scholar, teacher, and musician. Since 2000, he's taught U.S. history at a school here in Potomac, Maryland. His first book for children has just been released, Mr. Mehan's mildly amusing Mythical Mammals. And here to tell us about it is Mr. Mehan himself, Matthew Mehan. Thanks for being here.
Thank you very much.
Hey, okay, so why did you decide to write a children's book, and why one that really a picture book with very artful and at times difficult poems?
Yeah. Well, I'm a teacher, and I've watched our SAT scores nationally go down every year. 2016 was another massive low.
Terrible.
And poetry is actually a kind of art form that has not been very popular over the last decades, and the only place you can find it is for children. So I wanted to sort of reintroduce a lot of the liberal arts and the classical learning of the Judeo-Christian heritage in a beautifully illustrated, sort of fun and delightful way, but one that asks children to take a step up.
No, and you do that. You do that. This really follows the spine that runs through the A, B, C, D, E, F depiction of all these fantastical creatures are the journey of Dally and Blug, who are two of your mythical mammals. Who are they? Why are they central to this?
Yeah, the letter D creature, the Dally, he has necktie ears that are blue and yellow, symbolizing he's a cheerful fellow, but he can become very sad at times with the blue. And the Blug is a big, fat yellow ball, like a giant floating sun with tiny little wings. And he is sort of a symbol of cheerfulness and whimsy, even a symbol of poetry and what it can do to sort of lighten the mind and lighten the mood when things are blue and things are down. And the two of them kind of go on a journey through a series of mythical mammals and learn to overcome the evil, the letter E creature, the evil of sadness through their friendship.
And where did you get these mythical mammals? It took you 10 years to put this book together.
Yeah, so, I mean...
Why not go with real animals, bizarre real animals?
There's a certain relief of the mind when you take off into whimsy and fantasy that is restful and delightful and amusing, and it allows you to introduce things that maybe are really common and need to be revisited, but you get bored by just someone lecturing you about, like, hey, be a good friend to other people. Well, then you flip the script and it's something fantastical and amusing, and it's another easier way to deliver those things.
You said in an interview that this attempts to aid in the formation of the human heart. How so?
I think that's the role of the poet in the city. I mean, I think that's the artist, is you shape passions. You can give an argument, and that's very good, and we've got a lot of theologians and philosophers and people laying that out, but also how to properly integrate those truths into your emotional life. That's something that we don't pay enough attention to, and that's something that's the poet's realm, is the human heart and shaping it. So a lot of the imaginative journey is reactions to things and helping people feel the right way about things.
Who were your biggest influences as you began down this journey? This is always scary to launch, particularly into children's lit, because as you know, you're a teacher, it's a moving target. Kids are a moving target. They're the most difficult and I think the most wonderful audience you can
You're
write.
doing a good job. I mean, you've been after it.
It ain't easy.
Yeah, but well, the influences certainly Seuss, Shel Silverstein, Ogden Nash, Belloc, Chesterton, the sort of
Lewis Carroll.
Yeah, Lewis Carroll. I have an homage to him actually in the Blug painting. His illustrator Peter Tiniel's White Rabbit is sitting right there.
I saw that
beneath Christ Church College, which is where he taught. So there's a lot of homages. I even have a kind of a reboot of the Jabberwocky called the Jargon Talkie, about sort of PC and manipulation of language, and how to put charity into everything you say.
Yeah.
So Yeah, there's a lot of influences, but really at the end of the day, not that I don't aspire to this level, but Shakespeare, Moore, Chaucer, Dante, I studied the greats and I wanted to deliver that in a, it's more simplified form, but I wanted to try to practice those poetic arts and then give them to other people.
Now, this is intended for 7 to 12-year-olds.
That's where you're forced to place it.
Yeah, but you have an author's note at the beginning, and you urge parents, adult readers, you say, I suggest that you try your best to become a child once more. Doing so will bring you through poetry's locked door. Now, when you're ready, hold the book steady, raise your eyes from here, then reread the note that's truly true, the one to all children readers, which you thought perhaps was not addressed to you.
Exactly.
Why that?
Well, because there's a certain amount of disgust in a serious world for whimsy and imagination. And as a result, I think adults leave a lot of the cultural work of forming the next generation to people who we really shouldn't leave it to, frankly, to be perfectly honest. And I think it's also just when you want to enter into imagination and whimsy and poetry, there's a certain amount of pride you have to let go of. You have to play the fool. That was in the readings today. There's a certain foolishness that is true wisdom, and that's a lesson for adults as well as children.
Yeah, I'm glad I got the foolish part down. That's
That's
good.
right. We're good. We're good.
Let's talk for a moment. There's some questions I ask every author that sits in that chair. What is your favorite children's book and why?
That's a really hard and nasty question.
No, it's a
great question. My favorite children's book that I've ever read for myself would undoubtedly have to be Shel Silverstein's A Light in the Attic.
Oh.
When I read it, I was just like, what is this? This is ridiculous and hilarious and funny. And it made me think about poetry for children. As I got older, I started to realize we can do better in terms of the messages. And so I actually wrote this book as a kind of, homage to Shel Silverstein in one sense, but also a kind of little nudge to a dear old uncle, like, hey, there's some other things that are really important we can do too.
Other things we need to talk about here. If you could choose a mentor, living or dead, who would that be?
Thomas More.
Thomas More.
Yeah, I did my dissertation on Shakespeare's play about Thomas More. I've studied him for a long time, and I realized he's actually a poet first. That was his training. And he, I think, brought the arts of poetry and rhetoric to the civilized world in a new way that helps with peace and friendship.
As an educator, as an author, what advice would you give to parents who are having a difficult time, particularly with their boys, getting them to read? What would you tell them practically to do in the short term?
One, digital fasting, right? Like the phones and the apps and the games, is that you have to create a space, right, for them to grow. And if there's too many brambles and thorns, they just won't grow the right kinds of flowers in that garden of the mind. But two, I tried to write a book that you can read that has puzzles and mysteries and challenges and search and find. There's a certain amount of saccharine literature that doesn't have the Will Wilder sort of adventure, like, hey, get after it. Putting that, especially with boys, I teach at all boys schools, that sort of challenge and mystery. And then the other one is lay the stakes high. Say, hey, wisdom, you want to be a wise and good man. And that takes training and study and letters. And you want to do it artfully and wittily and wisely. So get after it. Read the best books from smart people. And that means a lot of reading and then reading the best as you go.
Final question I ask every author. Is there a story that changed your life, deepened it, and had a lesson in it that perhaps adjusted your path?
A children's book story?
Yeah, one you encountered when you were younger.
I think there's no doubt in my mind that I have to tag myself as part of the Middle-earth team of Hobbiton. Like The Lord of the Rings, and seeing that kind of nobility under duress made me see everything as a kind of heroic quest, which I think is really important.
Fantastic. Matt Mehan, thank you for being here. The book, Mr. Mehan's mildly amusing Mythical Animals by Matt Mehan, is available now at bookstores everywhere and online. Go get it for you and your family.